Hello and welcome today in Ukraine. I am in Lviv, and here we celebrated 2 days ago for the arrival of the Mirage 2000, which were eagerly awaited. So we will take a small point on the expectations, the use of this device, far from the sterile controversies we see in France and then people who tell you anything about the real capacities of the plane. Firstly, the Mirage 2005 is an air dominance device of air superiority. That is to say that it will have an RDY radar, which has a range which is superior to 100 kilometers. It has MICA missiles, IR and ER. This means that some will be guided by the infrared, for example, the reactor of a device that will aim, or with onboard radar. All this gives a firing capacity that is superior to 60 kilometers distance. It has a 30mm cannon that allows it to destroy targets in flight. It will be able to fly at Mach 2.2, so that means it can move quickly to intercept targets. That's why it has missions in the French army that are mainly police of the sky. That means it's going to take off very quickly to intercept planes that wouldn't respond, for example, to the radio. Or it is sent to the Baltic countries to ensure the security of our European allies whose airspace is regularly violated by Russia, because Russian planes very regularly enter the airspace of allied countries. To grasp the Mirage 2000's role in Ukraine, it's crucial to comprehend the activities of Ukrainian aviation over the last 3 years. There are several devices. First, there is the Sukhoi 25, which is a ground attack aircraft. This is what we call close air support. Traditionally, that means it directly fires at targets on the ground in support of operations that can unfold on the ground. It can also drop bombs and has been upgraded in Ukraine to use high-precision gliding bombs like the Joint Direct Attack munition and A2SM supplied by Ukraine's allies. The MiG-29 and Su-27 are theoretically more multi-mission aircraft, capable of ground attack and air-to-air beyond visual range missions. For instance, this shows a MiG-29 shooting down a Shahed kamikaze drone, or Russia launching cruise missiles. And then there is the Su-24, which is a more strategic bomber with a much higher payload capacity, often flying at low altitudes to execute penetration munitions and deliver high-precision guided munitions. The big advantage of this plane is that France and Great Britain have also integrated the Scalp Storm Shadow missiles, which have hit a lot of very strategic targets because they have a range of 300 kilometers, especially over the Black Sea. But since Ukraine has the right to fire on Russian territories, there have also been many decision centers or deeply protected centers with great efficiency. But all these planes, obviously, when we've integrated Western missiles supplied by France to Great Britain, Europe, the United States, onto these Soviet planes, there are still restrictions, particularly related to the low precision of inertial navigation systems that are not linked with global positioning systems in their avionics. So it's a bit of a makeshift job, even though it produces great results. The fact that we've got planes like the F-16 and Mirage 2000 arriving means we're going to have the full array of airborne resources available for detection in electronic warfare with systems integrated into the plane, rather than adding, for example, electronic warfare pods to release missiles that trace back to the source of a radar emission. It's been very effective, but it's been more complicated than if we had systems that are natively installed on the plane to do it now. The Mirage 2000 integrates into an ecosystem with these planes, which are very efficient, and the first use that's going to be made of it is to do exactly like the F-16. You know that Ukraine is being attacked with thousands of kamikaze drones are actually low-cost cruise missiles, and hundreds, roughly 150 Kh-101 cruise missiles are launched each month on the country from, for example, the Tupolev 95. And to intercept all these missiles, a large amount of air defense is needed. Sometimes it's with just a shot that's fired from the shoulder, and they've had some success in this area. The Cheetah, a large machine gun connected to a radar, enables precise targeting and destruction of targets in flight. And sometimes they also have to use anti-aircraft defense systems with missiles that cost a lot more, notably, for example, the IRIS-T, or ones you are probably more familiar with, like the Mamba Health and the Patriot, which were provided in very, very small numbers, but also have the ability to protect the cities where they are placed against Kinzhal missiles, which are hypersonic missiles that go Mach 3, Mach 5, whereas the other defense equipment like the Buk, the Strela, the S-300s will be able to intercept only low-cost missiles and Russian cruise missiles. So, to better protect the country, the F-16s that have been provided to Ukraine up to today have stayed on the rear, and they will go to meet the missiles that are launched on the Ukrainians. Meaning that they will take off towards where the missiles are arriving, especially to protect cities where there is no fixed and sufficiently present ground air defense. We have received reports that in some flights an F-16 was able to destroy 6 cruise missiles during a single mission. And that's a figure that's relatively consistent since between the RR missiles that are under the wings of the F-16s and their ability to destroy them with the gun. So it's ultimately a limitation by the ammunition it will carry with it. And that's why we've seen an evolution in the efficiency of the Ukrainian air defense since July, since the arrival of the F-16s, simply because these planes are dedicated to the interception of the incoming cruise missiles. So, it's not the only aircraft. Once again, the MiG-29 does it, so does the F-16. You also have helicopters like the Mi-8 with numerous images showing them intercepting, notably the Shahed suicide drones low cost because it's more or less the speed of the helicopter. You even have Yak-52s being used for these kinds of missions. And so this whole ecosystem allows intercepting over 90 to 95% of the Shahed kamikaze drones, with a portion also being destroyed by electronic warfare, where some Shahed are sent directly back to Russian territory to explode there rather than on Ukrainian territory. You have an interception rate that is now well over 70 to 80% for cruise missiles. The Mirage 2000S will also enable these missions, increasing capability and protecting civilians who are targeted daily. Remember, apart from the frequently discussed electrical system, Russians have targeted over 2,400 health system facilities. These are the official figures from the World Health Organization, that is from the UN. And you have the same thing on collective urban heating circuits, on pump systems to have running water. So the Russians are really attacking civilians. This isn't a surprise for you. The evolution on the Mirage 2000, the one that was provided to Ukraine, it has been improved. Certainly additional sensors. Nonetheless, there is a ground attack capability that the French army lacks. We can imagine several things. The first is that there are different versions of Mirage 2005 and some have an anti-ship capability. Could we imagine that our Mirage 2005 in the Ukrainian version have the ability to carry AM-39 missiles, that is to say the Exocet anti-ship missile that at this time we could have missions to destroy Russian ships in the Black Sea, knowing that the Black Sea fleet is already quite damaged? The other expected, that's for sure, is certainly at least ground attack, either with smooth bombs, i.e. by dropping bombs that will fall more or less by gravity, but especially with bombs like the Joint Direct Attack Munition, and especially the French A2SM provided by France, up to 50 copies each month. These are gliding bombs that can travel 43.496 miles. Ukrainian fighter jets like the MiG-29 Su-25 and Su-27 have been using these bombs from a distance in missions they're already partially carrying out. We've seen a lot of positive feedback on these bombs due to their high precision and effectiveness, even in a cluttered environment. That means that the Mirage 2000 would mainly allow to increase the volume, the number of planes capable of delivering these glider bombs. The other option, and what is really expected here, is the possibility to also launch Scalp missiles, the cruise missiles. French who are integrated on some Mirage 2000 because the problem of the Sukhoi 24, the Soviet strategic aircraft that is the only one that can deliver these weapons today, is that Ukraine must own certainly less than a dozen, probably just over 5. And so when you have so few, it also restricts you in your ability to use. And so when you have to launch these cruise missiles and you can only carry 2 missiles per aircraft, and you only have 2 or 3 that are available, you can make rooms that are going to be relatively small, and the fact of having more planes capable of delivering them, well, logically, you will have a bigger impact at the end, and so it is also this increase in the number of aircraft that is important. So, the 2 actions that we expect for the Mirage 2005 is 1, to stay in the rear, to save lives, 2, to deliver gliding bombs, but rather probably scalpel missiles, cruise missiles that will go 300 kilometers range, and so it also allows to stay out of range of the Russian air defense, which will always remain active. Secondly, when Ukraine will have 30 to 50 Western fighter jets, meaning they will have enough mass volume to be able to better protect their territory and airspace. In this second phase, that is to say, we must wait at least until summer, or even later, we will be able to see offensive actions from the Ukrainian air defense. That is to say, today the defense is mainly present to protect civilians, and there are not enough to deploy them at the front, particularly to protect the soldiers who are in their trench, the Ukrainian soldiers who are suffering from Russian glide bombs falling by the dozens each day. These glide bombs weighing between 500 ki, 1000 ki, and which will also have a gliding range of 60-70 kilometers distance. And the Ukrainians, no longer having air defense on the front and having put it on the rear to protect their civilians, and unfortunately for the soldiers, they are almost forced to suffer these bombs without being able to react. Well, the day when you have enough fighter planes to defend the Ukrainian sky, you will potentially have the possibility of having these heavy air defense systems that would be a little closer to the border with missions that we remember. When they had shot down the Russian radar planes A-50, they had shot down 2 in flight. They had also shot down command planes like the Ilyushin 22 or even strategic transport planes like the Ilyushin 76. And every time, there are still several planes that have been proven destroyed. And also fighter planes Sukhoi 24, Sukhoi 35. The Ukrainian defense system has destroyed over 120 Russian planes with a current focus on targeting rears. How could we give more Mirage 2000 than the 12 that are to be sold and will be subtracted from the park of the French Air and Space Army, where they are normally used every day? And these are planes that were supposed to leave the park in a few years, but normally we were supposed to receive Gus. There is an acceleration of the transfer and exit from the park, but other countries also possess Mirage 2005. We cannot provide further details. Firstly, we can look at the Mirage 2000s in a general way. You see here all the countries that are equipped, and we could transform these planes to improve them, to modify them exactly as we did for the Mirage 2005 of the French Army. But we could also imagine that some countries cede their own planes that they already use today, and there are deals that are in discussion. For example, Greece is trying to resupply to get rid of these Mirage 2005 in order to be able to buy more Rafale. This deal will be doubly beneficial for France. That is to say, we will already be able to recover these planes, for example from Greece, by buying them back for a pittance. It's a few million euros. It's not worth much. Contrary to claims by some politicians at the Baltic in Moscow, a plane doesn't cost 60 or 30 million euros. We are talking about end-of-life planes that are not worth much and are bought for really cheap. Look at the deals we've made to sell dozens of Mirage F1s to American companies that will use them for training American pilots. An end-of-life plane is practically worthless. So buying these Greek planes to supply them to Ukraine doesn't cost us much. Helping Ukraine saves lives and protects their territory. It also allows us to sell more Rafale aircraft. And so, deals like this one with Qatar, with India, with many countries that now have Mirage 2000 fleets and could potentially get rid of them if there are replacements that are coming in. Well, all these devices could potentially be transferred to Ukraine in the end. For those solely interested in the financial aspect of supporting Ukraine, another option to consider is the Rafale fighter aircraft. Recall that in 2021, just before the war, official announcements stated that Ukraine had selected the Rafale. According to French official sources and articles, the plane was said to be exported after an international competition where France was favored to sell these Rafales. So we could already imagine that today the situation is clear. The Ukrainians, they have Soviet planes. They are not going to buy Russian planes when the war is over. After the war, they will essentially have a fleet of 2 Western planes. It's either F-16s or Mirage 2006. Logically, you then buy the successor plane. For example, if you have F-16s, you can buy F-35s. The F-35 at $40,000 per flight hour is too costly for Ukraine to operate. And, incidentally, the Americans would certainly refuse to provide the plane for reasons of industrial secrecy, etc. They sometimes hesitate to put too much pressure on frontline countries, which is a bit of a shame. But anyway, the other option, obviously, after the Mirage 2000 is the Rafale. That is to say, today, to provide Mirage 2006 to Ukraine is potentially to open the door to sell dozens of Rafales when peace is there and when arms purchases are financed, notably, we hope, by Russia, because part of the price and the money that is drawn by Russia from the sale of its gas and oil could be used to rebuild the country and to protect the country by having a more effective army. So let's be clear, this plane, it's going to be useful. It's going to stay mainly in the rear at first. As their numbers grow, they will advance to the front lines. Some may be shot down or destroyed on the ground, which is expected in a real war. But their presence here, it's never too late. That's another element. It's annoying that supplying planes earlier in 2022 would have been better, as we respected pointless Russian red lines. However, the planes arriving today will still be useful, and the volume keeps increasing. With F-16s arriving this week, I am very proud of my 2 countries. Belgium supplies F-16s and France provides Mirage 2000s, which makes the difference in stopping missiles for now, but more will be done later. Alright, I hope you enjoyed it. I'm continuing the show. Today I'm going to Poltava.